Hello. I'm not quite sure where to begin with this video, because after recording the game footage, I have redone the video script at least 3 times. I'm not even sure I'm not going to completely nuke this one and start a new script. The biggest reason for the do-overs was the style of this video. Originally, I was going to do a "Here's why I played Digimon Story Time Stranger instead of Pokémon Legends ZA", or a "Pokémon Legends ZA made me play Digimon Story Time Stranger instead" type of videos, but I don't think I'll be doing Time Stranger justice. I'll try to go over what happened gameplay and gameplay loop-wise in this limited time frame. So what was the reason I wanted to give this game a try to begin with? Although I primarily grew up with Pokémon, I did play and watch Digimon as well in primary school. I had a couple of the PS1 games and the first few seasons on VCD, the good old VCD era. Didn't last very long before the DVDs came around, but good times, good times. Digimon Story Time Stranger was released around the same quarter as Legends ZA, and, well, I just think Legends ZA gave me no reasons as to why I should play it instead of Time Stranger. A large part of it is due to the absurd price tag of the Switch 2 and the game itself in my country, the 60 FPS lock behind the Switch 2, and the early DLC announcement, but we'll get more into Nintendo's dubious pricing later. And don't even get me started on the lawsuit on Pocket Pair's Palworld. I'll say it now and I'll say it again later down the line. If you had fun with ZA, I'm really happy that you did. I'm sure if I ever get to play it down the line, I will have moments where I think the game shines as well. However, it doesn't mean that the game is free from criticism, and I think most of the discontent people voice for Legends ZA are perfectly valid. So strap in and grab a snack. I'll be going through my experiences with Digimon Story Time Stranger as a Pokémon fan, as well as my thoughts after completing the game and playing it for 50 hours. The game opens with a choice of 2 operators, and we already hit a roadblock in naming. We could have named the character the trademark Intro's Fool. I'm not even sure fool is a swear word. It's a shame we can't get the other characters in the game to insult us every 2 seconds, but we will come to find out later, the name rarely gets mentioned anyway. Much like its title, being Digimon Story, this game is really story heavy. Who saw that coming, eh? Naturally, this game has a lot of cutscenes. A lot. You can skip these, of course, but then it would defeat the purpose of playing a Digimon story game. There's going to be a massive and copious amount of abridging in this video for the sake of brevity and time, but I would say the story was fun to get through. Even though you can somewhat predict where the story was going at times, it was quite good. I found it to be a nice blend of the old. Our friendship and bonds will pull us through, and more mature themes like the Digimon Human War and character deaths. It felt like the series knew its target demographic well enough and properly catered to it. Looking back at my game footage now, it's nice to see all the parts that probably flew over my head the first time I played it through. Anyway, let's get into it. We got dropped straight in the middle of a movie theater, got shown an introduction animation about, well, foreshadowing to the whole game really. We were introduced to this character called the Operator, and was promptly briefed on the happenings around us, as well as a secret organization called Adamus that was giving us orders. Our mission was to investigate anomalous phenomena that were occurring around Shinjuku. We arrived at this massive wall structure called the Wall of Hope, apparently containing all the anomalous phenomena that appeared 8 years ago in the heart of Shinjuku. Some lady screamed, a part of a barricade fell, and we kinda just strolled in there. So much for the special forces. Down in the sewers, it was time for us to choose our first Digimon. And who else could it be than this Patamon? Look at this little guy. Obviously the only logical choice. The game told us all about its battling system and the weaknesses chart, as well as its insta-battling option outside of the normal battles. Further down the underground, we were chased Pepsi Man style by this blue metal Greymon, which only happens in this beginning bit. I adore this game and all, but I always have questions for gimmicks like this part that only happens once in the whole game. In any case, we were saved by this mysterious girl who mysteriously seemed to know us. It doesn't take a genius to predict that some sort of time-traveling shenanigans were afoot. A time stranger, perhaps. We had a huge mandatory boss fight that seemed like a losing battle. We were saved by Omnimon, the usual happenings. We moved on to the government building. Remember this building, folks, because the game will never let you forget. So let's talk about the core gameplay loop for a bit. In this case, acquiring Digimon. The more you defeat a Digimon, the more data you analyze, and basically you can materialize a better Digimon once you reach 200%. Which just means better stats, which are the elements you need to pay attention to when digivolving. I knew this gameplay mechanic was bad news the first time I saw it, because my completionist side could never let something like this just pass by. After spending longer than I would have liked on the first floor, I forced myself to go on with the game. We encountered some shenanigans with a broken building, crossed this gap with a Biyomon, and reached the top. We beat the Kuwagamon boss battle. This was quite hard without grinding actually. And we witnessed this ominous shadow a giant mech made itself known. A giant hand came out of the sky, all ending up in this giant explosion. Remember this giant explosion, folks, because the game will never let you forget. This would come to be known as the Shinjuku Inferno. And so we got blasted by the explosion and sent back into another timeline. I guess now we're in for some strange times. We woke up in a strange temple greeted by Minervamon and her lackeys. After stumbling upon the strange shadow once more, we got mistaken as an egg thief while trying to save it and was yeeted back into almost present-day Japan. 8 years back, in fact, around the time the first Digimon was found in the area. Remember when I said I was going to do some serious abridging? Yes, get ready for that, because we're barely over the first hour and we still have so much to get to and we've had virtually no time for the gameplay yet. There's the public safety guy, so we'll see more later. The mysterious girl's dad, mysterious girl's streamer friend, Digimon breakout in the sewers, and finally, the mysterious girl herself protecting a mysterious Digimon. I didn't know it at the time, but we could have probably spent more time grinding for levels and Digimon here before the boss battle, because this segment of the game had a bit of a learning curve to it. At this point, Patamon and Agumon were my hardest hitters, and I still had to spam items to get through the battles. After beating the Raremon, we ended up at Inori's place to investigate more of the Digimon appearances as the Time Stranger. All this, and we barely reached the second hour. We could access the in-between theater now, a place where we can place Digimon in the Digifarm, a sort of AFK farm that we can use. This theater would be where I spent the majority of the late game period. We could also upgrade our agent skills now, which directly affects our agent rank. The agent rank serves as a requirement for Digivolutions as well. So in this timeline, that is 8 years in the past, we're dealing with a time where humans were just starting to encounter Digimon. We largely spent the time solving problems in the sewers and meeting key characters, tracking down the mysterious red Digimon in particular. When we did find it, it turned into a humanoid Digimon called Agumon. We spent the next few hours investigating Shinjuku, completing side missions when we could. There weren't any notable changes in the team I used, but Agumon joined our team, which provided some nice extra firepower. We see the three main characters getting closer along the missions, with Inori and Agumon vowing to protect each other. More of the strange portals appeared in town, with the Metal Greymon spawning in again. With that same portal, Minervamon is back. We searched for the egg of the Great Guardian with her, the same egg that was knocked over in the temple, and found ourselves battling Titamon in the sewers. This was an unbeatable battle, and we got promptly decimated. Another portal opened up, and we found ourselves waking up in the Digimon world. And lo and behold, that was the intro to the game. Almost 6 hours in, and only now we get the title screen. While trying to progress the story to raise our agent rank, we spent a lot of time in the outer dungeons. The outer dungeons are extra missions in the in-between theater that you can keep repeating, good for EXP and money. There are actually 2 DLC dungeons for EXP and money in particular, but I really didn't want to buy those and support toxic publishing practices. Instances and dungeons like these should really be an unlockable in the game instead. We grinded for EXP at this dungeon as well, just cycling through the entrance and back to spawn the enemy Digimon in. Patamon finally digivolved to Angemon, something I was putting off for a while. I was also using a good bunch of Digimon to enhance Angemon. I ran into Platinum Numamon here, just thought this was pretty cool. We went back to the outer dungeons and finally decided to progress the story. There was trouble with the Titans at the central tower outside of town, with the Titans being the central enemy group at war against the good Digimon. At this point, it seemed that the war between the Digimon was directly linked to the Shinjuku Inferno. The tower itself was quite lengthy actually. It wasn't terribly hard, but it had a lot of areas to it. At the top was Parrotmon, which we beat with Marukimon's help. After all of that, we still couldn't find a way back to the human world, so off we went to reach Junimon at the temple. But Locomon going to the temple was inoperable because the power was down, so we had to go to the factorial area first. Of course, between the main story missions, we were grinding for agent rank points and Digivolutions as well, which consumed most of the game time. Unfortunately, at this point, they weren't too interesting. Our quest to get back to the human world led us to the factorial area, and surprise surprise, the Titans were there as well. We beat one big Titan boss to reach Volcanusmon, who mistook us as Titans, so we had to beat his ass as well. Volcanusmon turned the power back on in the Digimon world, powering the rail system, which means we can now go see Junimon at the temple. Temple time. At this grand temple, we learned of the story between the hero Chronomon and the Titans. It's said that basically the Titans staged a rebellion, prompting Chronomon to defeat and banish them. Chronomon suffered fatal wounds, so he passed on his will to the egg. It was revealed that Agumon was actually the successor to Chronomon, and Junimon implored us to see the damage the Titans have done in the Digimon world. Before that though, we had side missions. The Abyss area. This was an interesting one. A Shellmon saved an attacking Titan who felt moved enough to reform himself, and we saw the aftermath of a Titan attack on the village. We witnessed the destruction and death of Digimon in the village, and went with the reformed Divermon to convince his Titan boss to call off the attack. Of course that didn't work so well, so we beat the shark's ass too. Shellmon left with the villagers to make more medicine, so we went back to the temple to report to Junimon. Our quest to return to the human world pointed us in the direction of the World Tree in the Gear Forest, but before that we had side missions for the agent rank and outer dungeons for the EXP and money. A long while later, we finally made it to the top of Gear Forest, the Gear Forest village. Here we met Bacchusmon and Sirenmon and repelled the Titan's attack on the World Tree. Bacchusmon said something about an all-out war, but it was time for more side missions. We started hour 16 by making our way back to the temple area, defeating a swarm of Titans on the way there on the Locomon. Titamon and his lackeys are back, so we gave him another beating. Junimon, on the brink of defeat, entrusted the treasure that contained Chronomon's power and sent us into a hole. However, she urged Agumon to stay behind and protect the Digimon world. She got mega angry because Agumon wanted to leave and protect Inori, but we left anyway. Agumon got a convenient power-up on the way back. So we arrived back at the human world, but this time it was under Titan attack. After traversing a short way to the government building, remember the building with the Inferno? Yeah, this is the one. We had to fight off Titamon and Skull Balukimon. Who stole the treasure with Chronomon's power. Now Titamon gained the ability to control time, but guess what? Agumon does too. Things went haywire again, and there was another bright explosion. This time, we were blasted 8 years into the future, into another version of the present day. In this world, the public knew of the Digimon's existence, and kind of viewed them as unwanted elements of society. Here, public safety went hard on repressing Digimon, because Captain Karemi got injured by a Digimon in the invasion. Long story short, the Digimon in the human world set up a refuge underground, naming it Rebellion Village. Marukimon is also here, escaping death after being poisoned in the Digimon world. We went back to the Digimon world in hopes to find a cure for Marukimon, only to find Central Town controlled by the Titans. We moseyed on over to the Abyss area with the Titan Latamon, finding out that the skilled healer that could heal Marukimon was a Digivolved Shellmon, Venusmon. So this was quite the interesting part as well, aside from the game ramping up in intensity and difficulty. We were supposed to give the leader of the Titans in the Ocean Depths, Neptunemon, a peace offering. This was the same Digimon that evolved from the Divermon that Shellmon saved. Lanamon tricked Venusmon into giving Neptunemon a fake peace offering containing poison. Neptunemon, trusting Venusmon, drank the poison and died. I don't know if it was because Digimon seemed like a more PG-13 franchise, but this caught me off guard. However, this was when the game finally progressed its whole time traveling bit. We found through the 3 Lollygods at the theater that Agumon had the power to control time. The power to be a time stranger? We did what came naturally after that, of course, and rewound time. And this will be what the theme of the game would be in the next good bit of hours. First off, we had to beat Lanamon to save Neptunemon and Venusmon twice. Fantastic. Those we save will in time become the Apostle of Iliad, the name of the Digimon world. Starting off with Neptunemon and Venusmon, we were off to a great start. We dropped off Venusmon at Rebellion Village to check on Marukimon and grinded a whole lot. Next up was the Gear Forest. Sirenmon apparently passed away, so we did the whole time thing and made it to when Sirenmon was just about to be beaten by a tyrant Kabuterimon. Although we won the fight, Sirenmon had to turn into a plant to recuperate her strengths. At least she's not dead, another apostle on the wall. There was another intimate scene with the 3, emphasizing on how much Agumon wanted to protect Inori again. Massive foreshadowing here. Next up was the Factorial area, and the apostle in question is one of the Bearmon brothers, who we saved all the way in the early game. Grappleumon was supposed to die finding his brother that turned evil to save him, so we turned back time to save him in the Colosseum. 4 apostles in the bag now. I know I'm going pretty fast, but each area and apostle quest did take about an hour and a half to 2 hours on average. We went back to Marukimon to report our progress, only to find out that the Titans are planning a raid on Rebellion Village. Not only that, public safety guys were planning something dubious as well. So we checked out the public safety base, only to find Inori's dad gone villainous from losing Inori 8 years ago. This was way back when we went to Iliad, and he also lost his wife and son to Digimon events, so I can't really blame the guy. I would go rogue too. Remember the huge mech from the beginning of the game? Public safety constructed it, we had to stop it. Inori stayed behind to convince her dad, and we snuck off. Operator told us to eliminate Agumon and Inori if it meant saving the world and its timeline if we had to. This Chumon came and told us that Marukimon had died in his attempt to retake Central Town, and the Titans were invading. Well, things have gone tits up, haven't they? All things pointed back to the thing that we were fighting to stop, that's right, the Shinjuku Inferno. And therefore that meant we had to go back to, that's right, say it with me, the government building. We were pretty much too late. The giant hand came back to stop the huge mech from public safety, huge explosion, and Inori slipped Ajumon's grasp and got lost into some ominous portal. Agumon didn't look too good, and we were back in the theater. And then we went back in time, just before Marukimon raided Central Town. But how did we go back in time without Agumon? Apparently, due to our effort in saving Sirenmon earlier, the fruit that can cure Marukimon was found on her sleeping spot. Marukimon is cured, and off we go to retake Central Town. Our team was composed of Ultimate Digimon, so this boss battle wasn't really a drag to go through, not to mention I did my fair share of grinding up until this point. This mystery Digimon with the really slow, deep voice came up, leaving us with more questions than answers.
Joyous news indeed. I will be waiting for you.
Right, the Dark Field, where all the Titans were banished to. This has got to be the worst area in the game. To get through this area, we had to spew endless positivity to this Gekomon, who would then throw up. When he throws up, we warp to the next area. It's cute in principle, but it was an absolute drag to go through. Not only that, the paths branched out, so it was possible to get to the wrong one. If that happens, we had to go back and do it again until we get the right answers. In any case, we got to Zombie Plutomon, defeated him, and touched tips with the Dark Shadow. Apparently he wasn't supposed to be Zombie Plutomon, so we went back in time. Which means we had to go through Darkfield again. Worst part ever. Darkfield Part 2. We reached the throne room again, and found ourselves enlightened by the fact that Chronomon was in fact not a hero. Chronomon was distressed by the revelation of the existence of higher beings and wanted true freedom. So he led the warriors of Iliad, the Titans, in a rebellion and pretty much lost. Chronomon was banished, and the Titans were branded villains and exiled. We found out that Plutomon wasn't really the one leading the Titans in the invasion, and set off to find out more. Our journey for the next apostle led us to the public safety base, where we would try to free Volcanismon. In similar fashion, we didn't get to Volcanismon in time, so we had to go to the building, government building, to stop the giant mecha anyway. We came across Agumon, who was revealed to be the demon created by Chronomon to inherit his power to control time, to continue his fight with the higher beings. Look, I'm trying my best to condense the story in under 30 minutes, alright? It took me 50 hours to finish the game, and the story really ramped up in the latter half. We went back in time again without Agumon and saved Volcanismon, earning us another apostle. Alright, it was time for the two lackeys that followed Minervamon around. If you forgot, it was these guys, but now all grown up after 8 years. Stage design wise, I do feel like this is the weakest dungeon out of the bunch, since it's pretty much just a 2-venue fetch quest. We had to go to the cosmic area, more specifically to the fire and ice area where they resided, and get items in one area to open a path in the other. First, we got the chill seat to meet with Apollomon, who didn't remember us from way back when. This was a pretty tough battle actually. We lost a few times before finally succeeding. By this point, we had all Ultimate Class Digimon, but still found it a bit hard. When we finally beat Apollomon, he recognized us and flew off to stop Dianamon, who had been accused of selling off Digimon to the public safety guys for experiments. We got through the ice area and fought Dianamon, whose whole fight gimmick is putting your team to sleep. We equipped some anti-sleep accessories, and this battle turned out to be a lot easier. With the victory over Dianamon, it turned out that they had a big misunderstanding, and all of us went to see Junimon at the temple. Except Junimon wasn't really looking the same. There was some more betrayals going on, and we ended up in prison. We had the whole prison break segment that every JRPG seems to have, meeting Tatamon again in the process. Remember this guy? He lost his powers, and now he's this guy. This temple was a lot of fun actually. It had some neat gimmicks, like the Angel and Justice type Digimon being a lot stronger here, and finding our way around the security system in the temple. When we made it to the end, we found Minervamon, who apparently was imprisoned here in the temple for the last 8 years. So we headed off to Junimon, HM and beat her in a boss battle. She regained consciousness, and we all finally agreed that Chronomon was the real villain in the story. This event leaves us with one more apostle. However, with the completion of this mission, we unlocked Agent Rank 7 and opened so many more Digivolutions, and I really took my time with this. And we have arrived at the game's final major plot reveal, so I guess if you've come this far and decided you want to play the game yourself, close this video right now, or just skip ahead. Junimon opened a gate to where Chronomon is, but a space-time distortion formed along the way. We came across Agemon, who revealed that he had been trying every time permutation to save Inori from certain death. Agemon, in fact, had been scattered across countless timelines again and again, that we were born from one of those timelines. That's right, our existence was birthed from Agemon himself. This explains our ability to travel back in time without Agemon. Operator and Adamas never existed. We created them to justify our existence to correct the flow of time. There's a lot more nuance and details here, of course, but we pulled off the feel-good moment and acquired Agemon as our final apostle. We went through this Digivolution to become Jupitermon, and basically gathered everyone to prepare for the final assault against Chronomon. There was an epic fight against the giant mecha, explosions, and we were flung across space into a strange mashup of all the areas we've encountered before. We confronted the mystery Digimon after venturing forward a bit. I totally forgot about this guy actually, I'm not sure why. He's basically just a form of Chronomon's ego who was pulling the strings. He told us to kill him because only through death would Chronomon attain true freedom from the higher beings. So we had about 7 areas left in the game before confronting Chronomon, and the first one was the Dark Field. The boss was Barbamon, one of the 7 great demon lords, although it was just a recreation. It was here that I had a bit of a difficulty spike, so after barely scraping by, I decided that it was a good time for grinding. And boy did we have quite a bit to do. Look at all these side missions. Out of all these, I think the Colosseum and the Royal Knights quest took the longest. The Colosseum ones are pretty straightforward. You basically talk to the reception in the arena and fight whoever comes forward. This quest doesn't actually finish until you beat the game and load back the save file, so this was quite the lengthy one. At this point in the game, we had the ability to travel back to whichever timeline we were at before, so any missed side missions will be available here. It was pretty useful to do all these side missions for the agent points, which you can use to unlock more skills and agent ranks. Back to the 12 Royal Knight quest. This was pretty interesting. Each Royal Knight had their own short quest, though gathering every night did end up taking a while because of that. At the end, we battled Alphamon, the 13th member of the Royal Knight. There was also the Moniker quest where we had to collect all of Hiroko's apparitions. I'm not sure if they're actually apparitions, but I'll just call them that. After completing all available side quests and grinding, we continued on with the story. The building segment, what building was it again? Oh, that's right, the government building. This bit was pretty short. We defeated Creepymon with the help of Marsmon and Kalismon, the Digivolve forms of the Bearmon brothers. Next up was the Gear Forest section, and this was pretty long and a bit draggy. We needed Bacchusmon's help to progress, and we had to fetch him apples to do it. We triumphed over Lilithmon to wrap it up, and moved on to the Abyss area. We worked with Venusmon to help Neptunemon, saving Digimon and Titans alike. The 7th Great Demon Lord member here was Leviamon, then he went down pretty easily. We had the Factorial area puzzle next, and this was pretty entertaining. Volcanusmon made the floor invisible, but it didn't really work out to our favor. We traversed the invisible terrain and beat Lucimon SM. Gotta love these names, man. The temple was next, and a short bit of tower defense. We defeated Belzimon BM and arrived in the central town. Short, interesting loopy segment here, and off we go to beat Belphamon SM, with Nanimon as comic relief coming shortly after. And that was that. We came to the end of the main story. We arrived on Ceresmon's back, ready to fight Chronomon to end things once and for all. I don't think it's possible to lose this fight with decent Mega Digimon, really. Chronomon starts out with insane buffs, but you know, the power of bonds and friendship pulls through by breaking down his defenses bit by bit. There was this one cool part where Chronomon devolved our Digimon in one of his phases, and I panicked a bit because I didn't know if I would be getting my Omnimon back. It only showed the Agumon part of Omnimon, so I was a bit confused. After his defenses were busted, it took our team no time at all to defeat him. We had our final transformation into Jupitermon, and we basically rolled into the end of the game. The credits were really nice. I think it really showed the part of the devs that cared about the game. Throughout the first phase of the credits, it showed our team members throughout the different parts of the game. I have my thoughts and reservations on the story, but I think this game pulled it off really, really well. Alright, that was basically the whole game. Again, I know I've summarized the story quite crudely. There were a lot more details and nuance to the story, including character backstories and the ever-abundant side missions. I didn't really get into who Captain Kuremi was, Asuna, Dr. Simmons, Inori's dad, the quirky characters and Digimon you meet along the way, and many others. Going through the game honestly left quite a lot of impressionable moments. It might not be fair to compare it to Scarlet and Violet and recent Pokémon games because I have just finished Time Stranger a month ago, but the depth in the lore and story between these games are incomparable. The only lore and story that stuck with me from Scarlet and Violet was the senior student with the backpack and the dog, whose name I can't really remember now. I had to look it up, but it was Arvin. Anyway, my brief thoughts. Time Stranger and the recent Pokémon games obviously can't be compared directly due to its difference in genres. Time Stranger has its main focus on its story narrative, while Pokémon Scarlet and Violet and Legends ZA stories are obviously not their strong suit. By this point, I think a lot of creators and fans have voiced their concerns over the obvious shortcomings Pokémon has displayed in their recent releases. Elements like frame rates and performance, Dexit, lacking textures and models, with the most recent being Legends ZA's flat buildings, and then there was the subpar stories and lore, and really a bunch of others. So I don't want to beat the dead horse any further, and I just want to talk about one key element that I think really matters to me: the overall game experience as a finished product. At the same price point across the board, if not very similar, I think Time Stranger feels a lot more complete. The game feels very smooth, and at no point did I encounter any game-breaking bugs. Or any, really. The core gameplay mechanics and pacing feels very deliberate, with a clear end goal. The art direction complements the IP nicely too, if not a bit generic anime-ish, but it was nice. On this game experience point, I don't think I can say the same with the recent Pokémon releases. Pokémon Scarlet and Violet were really messy at launch, and it took them a couple of years and a stronger hardware to be able to run it at a more bearable industry standard performance. For a game originally developed for the Switch 1, I find what Game Freak and the Pokémon Company released to be really unacceptable, and a clear sign that the Pokémon games are not their priority. The same can be said for Legends ZA and their map, textures and models, game content and so on. Announcing the DLC before the game was even released took the greed to the next level as well. That was really low. I think that was what made me not buy Legends ZA. I don't feel like Nintendo appreciated their consumers at all and made the games really soulless. Additionally, on the point of pricing, what the Western fans in the United States and Europe need to realize as well is that we on the other side of the world would like to buy these games too. But at more than $70 for our regional pricing here in Indonesia, that's more than a fourth of our highest minimum wage province. The rest of the country and other provinces have it even harder. If we combine the base game and the DLC, that's more than half of many people's minimum wage per month. Of course, Nintendo isn't responsible for any minimum wage in any country, but that brings me to my next point. I believe in the West people bought Time Stranger at $70 or something similar, but this game offered a complete enough experience that some people can justify their purchase. In my case, the regional pricing of Time Stranger was $49, so for me this was a good purchase. Nintendo, on the other hand, don't really adjust their prices regionally, so it's a much harder sell, at least for me. Now, I'm not saying Bandai Namco isn't greedy. Their DLC practices has me seething as well, with the EXP and Gold Outer Dungeons locked behind a paywall. This really shouldn't be happening, but people keep buying it, so they keep making it. I didn't buy it out of principle, but if it's still making money, again, they'll keep doing it. At the end of the day, I think with Time Stranger, it was obvious that Bandai wanted a game that represented the values of Digimon as an IP, and the kind of storytelling it wants to associate itself with. For lack of better words, it felt like they carefully spent time and allotted the budget so that they could deliver an experience the fans could enjoy. I don't think the same can be said for Pokémon, which is quite obvious, I think, from the budget they allocated to the last 3 or 4 Pokémon games. And again, I'll repeat the reminder. If you've enjoyed those last 3 to 4 Pokémon games, I'm genuinely happy for you. With the exception of Legends ZA that I haven't played, and Legends Arceus that I generally enjoyed, I did find bits and moments where I thought Pokémon was going somewhere again. But ultimately, as a finished product, I do find them lacking for what they are being sold for, especially for the size and budget the Pokémon Company holds as a whole. I love Pokémon and the franchise as much as you and many other people do, and this is precisely why criticizing it should be normalized. If people keep buying the slop the Pokémon Company is putting out, they'll keep making it. For once, I've voted with my wallet and I didn't buy Legends ZA. And it's honestly pretty hard. I'm feeling a bit left out with all the new Mega Evolutions, but I still don't think the final product is worth the price tag. If the Pokémon Company needs to make better games, they'll allocate more budget, more development time, and more care to their next releases. Right now, they're probably spending more money on the Pocket Pair lawsuit than they are on their games. The way things are going, we'll be stuck with half-baked Pokemon games and overpriced slop for a good while. However, I would like to prove myself wrong, so for the next few videos, I'm strongly considering doing 100 hours on Scarlet and Violet or Sword and Shield. Perhaps by playing through them again, I will find something that I missed before and get to enjoy them more. Until then, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope the rest of your day goes very well. Take care.